just really, I just had an issue with, I guess the comments. I mean, verbatim to me, like I was like, so you're gonna make the statements you're making and not even try to tell me how you got them? Like, I ask those questions and basically you just laugh it off. I don't understand how you do that when anybody can see in black and white exactly what's happening. So that just appears to be the order of the day for anything on a forum or on Google Plus or anything like that. It's just, I don't know. It's really frustrating. So, yeah. I don't feel good. You want to introduce yourself, man? Since obviously we're missing somebody.
All right, it's Dr. Feel Good. As I always say, just keep it gaming. I'm just here mostly as a spectator for the most part, but yeah, I guess we'll just wait and see if someone shows up.
Yeah, I really don't think it's gonna happen, but it is what it is, and in the background I'm getting little distractions here and there. So yeah, if you don't show up within the next couple minutes, I'm gonna have other things to do. So we're gonna we're gonna keep this going. So this is more of what these comparisons are about, right? A lot of people, me and Kim were talking about this before. A lot of people, to put it bluntly, talk shit on on social media, and to the point where they get like really amped up and say a lot of things and use a lot of hyperbole and things of that nature, and they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But when you're in this type of environment, either you don't show, or when you do show, what you get is way more subdued than what you would see in text, or what other people are jumping in and adding to it, and basically a bunch of people in the crowd yelling fight, fight, fight. So in this particular situation, there was a conversation that myself and I guess Dr. Feelgood was in it before I was, I think. And basically the conversation went down to talk about things that happened with the PlayStation 4 and certain third party games that were supposed to be, I guess the start of the generation, if you will. So, and somebody decided to step in and talk about how the PS4 is selling 20 million consoles, which everybody probably knows at this point right now. A lot of people are misinformed and doing things like saying the PS4 is the fastest selling console ever, and that is highly inaccurate because the Wii sold 24 million consoles in 1 year, and the PS4 sold 20 million consoles to date, starting in 2013. So until somebody sells 23 to 24 million consoles in a single calendar year, 12 months, the Wii won't be dethroned. As a matter of fact, it sold more consoles in a single year than even the PS2 did. So it's things like that you say certain things, you start to get out of hand. I know that people have their preferences and whatnot, but that kind of starts the thing. So, Dr. Feelgood, you mentioned that sales do not equal success, profit equals success, and a lot of people tend to be confused about that as well. As far as hey, well, the market cap on this person, because I went to this site that only looks at these particular sales because only investors look at this particular thing, means that X company has more money than Y company. I when you start talking about how much money somebody has on hand, or how much total profit a company makes, there's a whole lot of things you got to look at all at one time. Um, Myself and Francis, the player Essence, had this conversation. We had a deep conversation about it, and I almost did ended up doing a podcast about it at one point. But I think it kind of got nixed in the bud because we started doing some other things. But there are several things you have to look at. You have to look at the cost of a business, the cost that you're paying to keep the business running, the cost that you're paying for outstanding loans and other debts and things of that nature, the cost of imports and exports because you're a multinational corporation. So you have to deal with not just US dollars, you also have to deal with yen, you have to deal with the lira and all kind of other different types of monies across the world. So exchange rates also affect how much profit that you gain or lose. And profit at the end of the day is really how much money you have versus say, oh my God, our market cap is several $billions. Well, if your market cap is several $billions, but you have $30 billion worth of loans, are you really a profitable company? Are you really making money? Or are you basically just robbing Peter to pay Paul? That was more the gist that I got. So I don't know if that's basically the gist that you were getting at, correct?
Yeah, basically. And I mean, as you said, like no one got on my skin. You can ask about this. I've just actually made a decision that I'm not going to try to talk sense into people because my thing is I love gaming. That it's that simple. I don't care what system I own, over 10 systems. So I just love gaming. Period. And some people just actually they desire to be ignorant. I won't say stupid. I will say ignorant because they believe whatever someone else puts out there or says because they subscribe to this person or they trust this person or this person's popular. So I just decided that, hey, I'm just not going to care anymore. So when I see stupidity, I just block, like plain and simple. If you say something like, oh, hey, well, Nintendo needs to do better. Okay, why? Well, because, such things as 2015, these used to be standard. Block. Like, it's that simple because you can't even give me like hard facts of what needs to be improved upon. Not saying they're perfect, but to me, it's like no. And if you start running to numbers, and I can just easily say profit margin.
Yeah. I'm
Just for
starting to
me,
think.
I'm just knowing I'm just over it, huh?
Oh no, It was something else that I was reading at the same time. I was about to try to address it, but yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you can go. I was done. You can go.
So there are a couple of statements here. So one I want to put on here. Meanwhile, this isn't a quote unquote private roast, if you will, because the person in question has actually been Keshawn Everett has been invited multiple times here, and I sent him the link directly to his YouTube account and his Google Plus account. So he should be more than aware that this is happening right now. I've pushed the time back from 8 o'clock to 8:30 to now 9 p.m. And it's I don't know if he's going to show. Hopefully he does, so he can actually clear the air because I really don't like a one-sided conversation. But I'll some of the things that he mentioned were I guess he mentioned that the Wii U is not doing anything in sales at all, and definitely not games wise and graphics. That was kind of what kind of got me because that conversation had 3 completely fraudulent claims in there, and there was nothing whatsoever to back any of them up. And I addressed them both. I addressed all 3 of them directly, and I told them that despite the lower life-to-date sales, the Wii U is still making more profit because the Wii U has been making profit since day one. The only thing that the console, basically, if you bought the console and you bought a game, Nintendo made profit. That basically they sold the console at a wash, which is their first console, I think, doing this. I don't think they've ever sold a console at a loss of profit. This is the first time they sold it at zero profit whatsoever. Not a loss of profit, but zero profit. Basically, the cost of the machine to them is what they sold to you. So basically, they will make profit the instant that you buy a game. And last I checked, there are far more games sold for the Wii U than there are Wii U's out in the wild. So clearly, Nintendo made profit on Wii U.
Well, see,
So
another thing I like to add to that is this: if like the whole like the stuff you just addressed about it has no games and the sales aren't that good or whatever, and this and that, those statements, like you say, they are false to a certain extent. My thing is, if you say the Wii U has no games that I am interested in,
that's perfect. That's fine.
that's perfectly fine because no one can debate preference. But I forget who it was. Someone made a post about maybe 3 or 4 days ago about saying, I'm tired of the whole console war thing. It's getting really old, which I agree. I've never a part of it. But and then he said, you like what you want to like, you play what you want to play. And then I made a post. I said, you know what? I'm glad someone else has the common sense to know this. I said, but because other people came in and started talking trash, which is better. I said, but if you were to compare all three of these systems objectively with factual stuff that's not down to preference, but it's factual, the Wii U is a superior system.
Oh yeah.
Objectively, it is.
It's cheaper. There are more higher rated games available. You get more. Well, I won't say you get more deals on them now. Now you can probably get a lot more deals on PS4 if you subscribe. Um, but I just
Backwards compatible. It's the only one that's backwards compatible.
backwards compatible. You can make
Almost
your own
every bundle
expansion.
comes with a game. It's like honestly, overall, it is a superior system objectively. But if you say I don't like kiddie games, although I think that's very narrow-minded, hey, but that's your preference.
That's an opinion. So that takes away from whatever you're doing. So if you want to build a very very skewed, opinionated comparison that makes the Wii U looks like ass, yes, that's great. That's fine, well and good. That's your opinion. However, any fanboy of any other platform could also do the same thing for the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and even the PC.
And they do. I walk into I actually see posts every day where someone posts something about the PlayStation, and then another person will say, "Yeah, man, it's all about the Xbox. PlayStation has no games." And another person's like, "Are you serious? We got Bloodborne. We got this. What do you got? Sunset Overdrive. It only sold 500,000 copies." So depending on who you are, what side of the fence you're on, your preference is going to be where you speak to, and preference against preference, that is the argument that I never win. That's like saying man versus women.
Yeah,
That it's never ending, and there will never be a clear cut winner as to who's superior. But objectively, these systems, there is a clear winner. Objectively,
yeah, the games that are fun
exactly. So,
that work on day one.
and what I get tired of with people, and like I said, I see it so much that I've just said I'm just not going to deal with it. Like, no more will I just even step in to throw facts. Because usually when I jump into a debate or a post or I comment on someone's post, I make sure I throw facts. I don't say no, the Wii U is funner because that's subjective. I don't say, hey, the Wii U has more games because that is also subjective. I throw in facts, but then all I get in return is, well, like one person even said, I won't call any names. He said, well, the Wii U is loud. I'm like,
What?
how did this go from the Wii U being objectively a better console to now the Wii U is loud? First you were on resolution, now you're talking about it's loud. I said that's completely subjective. I don't think the Wii U is loud at all, but I can't prove it's
No.
not loud because maybe you have more sensitive ears. I don't know. Maybe you're closer to your console than I am, but that is purely subjective. But it is a fact. It has more games running at either high resolutions and or frame rates than the other consoles combined. It is a fact.
Now I will say this: when you're exiting from a game and going back to the menu, the Wii U sounds like a jet turbine. I don't know why, but it's only when you exit a game. When you start the system up and whatnot, it'll start to kick in a little bit, but then it dies down pretty quickly. But it never cuts off when you leave a game. I don't. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it's at its loudest when you're sitting on the home screen maybe and you're not doing anything. But once you click an app, the disc stops spinning.
Yeah, and then you're fine. It it, it just I guess there's some weird intricacies that Nintendo. There's some things they wanted to optimize, and some things they didn't want to optimize, as far as like keeping fans sped up at certain times and things of that nature. And maybe that was one of the loopholes that was missing, or whatever. Maybe exiting a game, they want to have more time for the fans to be there or whatever, to cool the CPU down or whatever, so you can go to the main task of running the OS. I don't know what the reasoning is, but for whatever reason, it's really loud then and only then for the most part. When you spin up a game, you only hear the disk drive really for the most part. You don't really hear fans kicking in because the system is hot. Um,
And the
I,
system never really gets hot. I mean, the system
no,
runs very, very cool. You may hear a fan cut on or disc spin, but trust me, that system is not even increasing your room temperature the slightest bit.
no, not at all. To be fair, I want to say between all three of them, they're all pretty much silent. The PS4 is pretty quiet for the most part, depending on the game. Xbox One, depending when you're installing updates, it can be loud sometimes. But other than that, I don't really have any issues. But then again, I don't really play any disc-based games on the Xbox One, with the exception of my son plays Grand Theft Auto 5, and that kicks up sometimes. But you have to install the majority of the game anyway. So once that kicks up that one time, it dies down. You don't really hear it anymore. So I don't know if you can really. I don't know. To me, it's kind of odd to me that why would that even be something for you to pick at? Like what does that have to do with you playing your game? Like how is your are your TV speakers really that weak? Like what kind of environment are you gaming in?
Dude, trust me. At first, I mean, I was seriously like, why is this even a topic you will want to bring up in a discussion in which you are clearly trying to say something's weak or is not worthwhile, not worth the money. And I'm simply trying to give you facts. I'm not trying to necessarily prove you wrong, but almost every comment he made, I was literally asking, like, okay, if you believe this, fine. I say, but if you provide me proof, I will admit that I was wrong. I have no problem with that. Even with King Rinpoche, whatever. And shout out to him, of course, when we were going back and forth on a few things. Not much, but he brought up some things that I did not know that I thought I did. And I said, okay, you're right. I'm sorry. I was actually wrong about that. Very simple. Very simple. But he actually posted the links to prove his point. Most of the people that want to talk down on the Wii U or any other system, they say stuff, but never ever post a link to prove it. Ever. It's just they talk as if their opinion is fact. Well, Xbox sucks. That's the end of it. It has no games. Okay, well, where's your proof at? And well, the PS4 versions of games are always better. Where's your
Yeah,
proof?
yeah. Where's
Because
your proof? How is it better
I can
exactly?
find conflict.
I think you cut out some. Ken, I think Ken cut out for a little bit. But yeah, I'm agreeing with him on that though, because it's just kind of weird that people tend to come up with stuff. I guess more of the issue is the things that people choose
Fun.
to
It's really
do.
fun. I just don't know if it's worth $60.
Oh, sorry,
Everything.
man. I guess your mic cut out a little bit while you're talking, so I kind of we kind of missed half
Oh, sorry about that. I
your
was
comment
there.
there.
I watched some video today, and some guy was like, he was playing some, he was doing I guess, a live reaction to the whole test fire Splatoon. He
Hmm.
says, "Yeah, the game was fun, man. The game is really, really fun. I just don't know if it's worth $60. I don't know."
But it's
And I'm
fun.
thinking,
What,
yeah, but he literally said it's fun. It's really fun. I just don't know if it's worth $60. I have to wait and see.
so you
And
would
I'm
rather
thinking,
play a game that's less fun and pay $60 for it because of how it looks?
and I almost want to comment and I want to ask him, do you own Destiny, Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed Unity, Evolve? Did you reserve Batman Arkham Knight? A lot of those games cost you more than $60 and you ran out and got them. And even review sites were like, yeah, definitely not worth the money.
Yeah.
But somehow a game you sitting here, barely know how to play, but you're having so much fun, you say, I'm not sure if it's worth $60. Isn't that the typical price of a game nowadays?
Yeah, $60. $60.
So
So
at that moment, I actually just stopped the video. I was like, okay, I was enjoying this for 10 minutes, but when once the person said that, I was like, yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. How can you be sitting there and admit to yourself you're having so much fun with the 1 hour demo, and yet in the same sentence you say, I'm not sure if it's worth $60, but I'm enjoying it a lot.
yeah, this whole conversation, now that I look at it more and more, now that I'm looking at the entire conversation more and more, all that happened was as we talked to him, we devolved his entire quote unquote debate into him giving his opinion, which is what ended up happening because he talked about game wise, and then once I started saying, oh well, quite a few of the top rated games of the generation so far are Wii U titles according to Metacritic and several publications, right?
Yeah, but
So
I can already see the excuse of, well, they're not graphically intensive. Like with this, we weren't talking about graphics. We're talking about how other people have rated them
yeah, and he
factually.
said I by games I didn't mean reviews. I meant by the fact that it appeals to kids more than anything else, like the same Mario Party, Mario Karts. Like what? What?
So what
It's a
about
good
Call of
game.
Duty?
It's a good game. Like you
That
said,
game that
game
comes
wise.
out every single year. Call of Duty.
Yeah, it sure does. But I guarantee you have a copy of it. I guarantee you have a copy of the sequel to Demon Souls.
And who mostly plays Call of Duty? I'm sorry, but I
Kids.
think it had actually been proven that more underage kids play Splatoon. I mean, not Splatoon. Call of
Call of
Duty than
Duty and
adults.
Halo. Call of Duty and Halo is full of kids. Full of kids. Full of kids all the time. It just is what it is. Like I'm starting to hear a lot more kids in Grand Theft Auto also. So it's
Don't even don't
kids.
even bring that game up, man. A game that people is not worth $60. And other complaints that I've heard, why am I not getting the full game at launch? I'm like, did you get all of Grand Theft Auto at launch? No. In fact,
It
even
was
you got
broken.
the second half of Grand Theft Auto 5, it was broken. It still is broken.
And they held the review for it so they can make it seem better, I guess. I don't know. That was kind of odd. I wonder what kind of score Mario Kart 8 would have gotten if it launched without online.
Like a 6, 7.
Yeah, the online is detrimental to the entire experience. Yeah, it's I can just imagine that. So yeah, it ended up being his opinion about games wise, if you will. It basically revolved into games wise means what he thinks is repetitive or not repetitive on one platform, but completely ignore all the repetitive games on the platform that he prefers or the platforms that he prefers. So it's that's kind of weird. That's not factual at all. That's your opinion. So, and you talk about graphics. Oh, and I told him you might not want to dig into that discussion at all because that's a completely technical thing that uh, you don't want to talk about unless you're going to say the aesthetics of certain games, in my opinion. Um, Instead, he says graphics wise, no game on the Wii U looks on par with a next gen game like Second Son or even Bloodborne.
Well,
Looks
see,
on par
and see, here's the thing with that.
because your eyes can tell what a game subroutine is doing.
But even if you take out if you don't take it to a technical level, here's my thing. If I want, I'm a photographer. If I want, I could take my camera and put it to the highest setting to get the most detail. Or, like I do on a day to day basis with my business, I put it on a level that's between the medium and the highest
So you get
because to me it's
performance.
optimal so I can get more pictures. Because why should I use all 18 megapixels when all they're going to do is print a 4x6? That's a waste
Exactly.
of power. So I said, I'll go ahead and set it for 6 megapixels because they're not going to use that. And that's what I do. So to me, it's like, okay, yes, you can see Nathan Drake's hair follicles in the Uncharted 4, trailer. But that's not full game graphics. That's not run like that the entire time. And yes, they chose to show you that much detail for a brief moment. But the whole game doesn't run like that or look like that. It was a choice. Nintendo just simply said, hey, let's worry about how the game functions
Hmm.
rather than how it looks. So let's not put all our power into making it look good for a few hours, and let's make it play good for dozens of hours.
So we were having a conversation. We were talking about the same Mario games and blah 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 things of that. Where we talk about repetition, right? So, but then again, you mentioned games like Second Son, which is I actually love this game because I love the Infamous games or whatever, and Bloodborne. Both of those games have the same dominating problem, and that is repeated textures, repeated colorless textures, if you will, over and over again. So the same nice looking realistic effect can happen as far as shadowing. But then in some cases, shadowing completely disappears, especially in the case of Second Son. Like if other effects are happening, like a shadow just completely disappears from a character. Like it blows my mind that, in 2013, we have these advanced consoles and things like shadowing can't happen every frame. I mean, that stuff happened in Super Mario 64. I'm sorry, not Super Mario 64 because it wasn't a true shadow. It was just a circle. Those things happen in Super Mario Sunshine. It blows my mind, man. I can't fathom that we'll say things like, oh, it doesn't look on par with this, or it doesn't look on par with that.
Well, here's my thing.
If it looks
When back in
realistic
the
like
Genesis
that,
Super Nintendo days, did you actually care? But did you
exactly.
actually care that Mortal Kombat looked more realistic than Street Fighter?
No,
Because I still think that Street Fighter overall was a better game.
and it still is, in my opinion, still
So
is.
yeah, you can have a preference as far as what you may think. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Of course, Uncharted 4 looks better because they're going for realism.
But at what
But
cost? How
at
many
what
invisible walls will there be?
not even that. It's like
Can you interact with everything?
look what the Order 1886 did. It gave you this super realistic game, and I won't lie, the graphics were stunning in that game. But they gave you basically a 5 hour movie with only what about maybe an hour of gameplay or so I heard total
Oh
actual
yeah,
gameplay.
it's all about baking the game to where expectations and opinions are optimal. Basically, you're like, this game looks amazing, when under the surface is really doing the same things that we've seen before. Gears of War had the same character model polygon counts as Wii games. But guess what? They normal mapped everything on the surface, so it looks really, really nice. But the textures still have issues. And if you use the long shot anywhere in that first game, you start to see how bad those textures are on things in the distance. Unless it's LOD directly in front of you, stuff looks really bad. But it looks realistic, right? So to you, that is a quote unquote higher fidelity. Like, people tend to know what this word means. This is collegiate level stuff apparently, because the press uses it all the time, and of course, since the press uses it all the time, everybody that follows them tends to use this language all the time. But they never can really specifically say what fidelity is if they're going to factually use it to compare it to something else. Well, it doesn't have the fidelity of this and that. What fidelity? Tell me exactly what's missing. Tell me one effect that is impossible for the Wii U to do right now. Name one. Name one resolution that the Wii U can't draw that the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 can. Last I checked, they're all 1080p machines.
Yep, but last time I checked, only two machines actually bragged about 4K and have not done it yet.
Yeah. So when it comes to those types of things, like, there are so many intangible assumptions that come into play, and basically when somebody actually, I won't say call somebody on it, but when it comes into question exactly what these assumptions are, then we start getting bits and pieces. Or in my opinion, when I look at it, my eyes can see that this looks better than this, and I'm like, okay, like,
Yeah,
I still think the Killer Instinct 2 looks better than the Killer Instinct that just came out on Xbox One because it's pre-rendered.
yeah, and
Like,
that's
that's
another
what my
thing
eyes see.
is that people saying, what it's in 720p and 1080p looks a hell of a lot better. I'm like, dude, no, it doesn't. I will admit there is more than two times the amount of pixel information comparing the two resolutions. I'm like, but the typical human being notices very little, if at all, when on a 45-inch screen sitting 7 feet away from the same game.
The only difference you would notice is the size of text, and the placement of text. If you're used to having 1080p or 4K displays, or 4K displays, and then all of a sudden it is downgraded to something else. On a 4K display, it would be a nightmare going from 1080p to 720p. Of course, there's a lot more pixels to display on that screen that you're already used to at full 4K. So when you start looking at something like that, you get the same effect that you do now if you try to watch something in standard definition. But when it comes to 720p and 1080i, 1080p, which are literally almost interchangeable, if you're a smart developer, you will always err on the side of caution and say 60 frames per second, 720p before we do 1080p, 30 frames per second, or 1080p, 60 sometimes. That it would be idiotic to do that type of thing, and that's I've heard multiple developers say, hey, you know what, we could have this running in 1080p on the Wii U, but we chose to go with 720p because it's guaranteed stable and we can add more effects. Why not?
It makes sense because, and most people don't know this, but even today, whether it be media, whatever, 1080p is still not a standard.
Nope.
Like still, like cable networks and satellite are still utilizing 720p for their high definition stations.
The only 1080p channels that I can get shows consistently in 1080p and sometimes 4K is Food Network. Food Network is pretty much Zoom. I guess Zoom HD. I forgot I don't even know if I still have that anymore. But Food Network pretty much is guaranteed to have at least one 1080p show per day. For the most part, I haven't seen anything to suggest otherwise on that network. For me.
And how many of us actually do focus on watching Food Network
Nah.
on a day-to-day basis?
No, I don't. And the only reason I even watched it recently is because my wife was watching something and I kind of skimmed through and I'm like, hey, let's check and see what this is. Now, 1080p, cool. Haven't seen one of these in a while. Everything else on TV is like 1080i, you know? So, which is basically 720p, and they upscaled it to spread the pixels across. So it's when it comes down to it, what you get at the end of the day on your screen is not what is advertised. And you can't really be how can I say this, the snob about technology, particularly if you don't even know what you're talking about. Like if you don't know how frames are drawn in 3D programming, like really don't start talking about frames per second. Don't start taking arguments that you hear from Digital Foundry and starting to spread those around as your evidence, because you don't even understand what you're trying to argue about.
Yeah, like I remember that whole thing about Bayonetta. Yeah, it dropped down to 29 frames per second, and this is just unplayable. Really, because every single magazine disagrees with you.
And they there was an interview somewhere where they said that's how they make their games. They do that on purpose. Now, I don't know what, I forgot what interview that was, but they said that's what they tried to do in Bayonetta 1, and that's what they wanted to do in Bayonetta 2. So it can reach 60 frames per second whenever they want, but if they want it to look hectic and they want something to look climactic, they intentionally drive the frame rate down. Now, that's not something that Team Ninja intended to do in Ninja Gaiden 2 and Ninja Gaiden 3, but it still gave that effect of the old school Nintendo games when you're getting to the end of the game, they're throwing everything at you and everything kind of slows down. And it gives you a sense of, how can I say this, high alertness or, a tension buildup, if you will. And that's kind of, it happens a lot in Mass Effect now that I think about it.
Yeah, I noticed it in Mass Effect too. But my thing is this, man. I don't think I've ever looked on the back of a box of a game that I was about to buy or was considering buying and looked for the icon that said 1080p, 60 frames per second.
No.
And they don't even actually have a little icon box that tells you whether or not it's in 60 frames per second. They don't. Some say that it gives you the supported resolutions, but I don't think when I went to go buy The Last of Us, when I went to go buy Mario Kart, did I look on the back of the box and say, is this 60 frames per second? Nah, I'm not getting it. No. It's never been important to me. Just like I never went to go buy a game like Call of Duty, even back in the first Modern Warfare, and said, does this support voice chat? No. I bought the game because I want to play it. Don't really give a shit what features it's missing. Like, I'm not saying that justifies it can be missing any and everything, and I still buy it. I'm not that stupid. But when I had interest in the game, I didn't tear it down for trivial features like that.
Yeah, it's really trivial, and people start to nitpick. The general perception is from the press and people that they talk to and whatnot, and the press have individuals that they have in their pocket that have worked on a title for all the different platforms, or they've worked on one title here or there, and they've got a development kit, or they got some information about a development kit at some point or the other, and they get this information that gives them kind of a general stepping stone, if you will, as to what kind of technology makes up the hardware that we have in our homes. So this general observation from these insiders that these press individuals have is that the Wii U is woefully underpowered with regards to the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. And I really don't see that with, number one, them being in the same resolution, because the Wii was greatly underpowered when it with regards to the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 for obvious reasons. The Wii wasn't even trying to be in the same resolution as those two. Now, if the Wii U is so weak, then why is it able to produce games in the same resolutions as the other two? Do so at a more stable frame rate, and to me, produce some of the best texture work I've seen in this generation.
I watched the video today that somebody posted, and they made a comment just like you said a few moments ago. I'm not sure what it was. I think it was some kind of show, and they were talking about games. It had two guys and some chick on there. It's about a minute long, and they were talking about, well, yeah, so what you think is gonna happen to E3 and whatever this and that, and then they got on this topic about something, and then the chick said, well, yeah, well the Wii U's not next gen, it's last gen, so
Yeah.
let's just get that out the way. I'm like,
this is hearsay from the press, and people keep recycling it over and over again because it's the popular thing to do. Everybody leans on what IGN, GameSpot, Kotaku, and all these other people say. Nobody questions it. Nobody asks for any information to back it up. There was supposedly somebody that was supposed to jump on top of this and dive deeper 2 years ago, but it never happened. So we just took the investigation with no conclusion whatsoever as fact. And so here we sit.
and my thing is, like, why are people so lazy nowadays to just do research on their own? Like, now everyone just goes to a blog site, a YouTube page, a game site. Not saying game sites don't have, accurate information, but it's definitely not 100% of the time. But my thing is, if you have a hang up about a game or a console, the best way to find out for yourself whether or not rumors are true or if it's up to your standards, the only way to truly find out is to experience it your damn self. No matter how a video may make a game look, because before YouTube did the whole 60 frames per second, you know, recordings and stuff like that, playback, a lot of games were not done justice wise. The videos did not do them justice because YouTube's fastest frame rate was 30 frames per second.
Mm-hmm.
So a person trying to show off how good Call of Duty is before it releases, you really couldn't get a real sense of how smooth and how good the game really was. So if you're curious, why not just go and just try the game out yourself? And I get the excuse, well, I don't think the Wii U is worth $300. It's like, okay, yeah, that's your opinion, but you really can't judge anything until you try it. Just like I've said on the video and on a post, I may say I don't have a PS4 and I don't have an Xbox One, and I may come out and say that, yeah, I think Order 1886 is garbage. Like, I think that game, it's garbage. But I say I think because honestly, I have not played the game. I don't like what the game represents. I don't like how they did it. I don't like how there's more cutscenes than real-time gameplay. But I have never said that factually that game is garbage. I said I think it's garbage because I can honestly say I have not played it, so I can't truly judge it because I haven't touched it.
Yeah, it's just broken logic all the way around. I always use this as for the videos that I do upload. This infernal thought process, and so I'll give you an example. I have a work colleague that out of the blue, like in the middle of a comment, mentioned something about an iDevice. Apparently, this guy does not like Apple and things of that nature. Unbeknownst to people on this show, I really do like Apple, but I really dabble in all operating systems to include BIOS, Sun, things of that nature. So I'm a Unix guy at heart. So obviously, since I side with Unix and Mac OS 10 is using a variant of FreeBSD, then I'm gonna like that too. So this guy is like, he mentioned something, and the thing that came out of his mouth that kind of blew me away. He mentioned the Apple tax. And I'm like, so, okay, we're going to go with broken logic here. Let's hear your broken logic. What do you mean by the Apple tax? Oh, man, you pay a whole lot more for something you can get way cheaper. Way cheaper for what exactly? And he's like, oh, well, I could buy a PC way cheaper than I could for that Mac Pro back there. And I'm like, okay, so you could buy a PC for what you want to do for way cheaper than what's in that hardware that's designed to do something completely differently. I'm sorry, that sounds like you like a Toyota and I like a diesel engine. Two completely different things. One is for a completely insane amount of work and is the relied upon consistently. Another one is for personal use and you doing certain things that you like to do to consume content.
And I can be honest. I'm the kind of person that I really don't care for Apple. I don't. I really don't. But at the same time, I do recognize one thing. Apple products are extremely optimized.
Yes, they
They
are.
like to
And
me
the
that's the
hardware
appeal of
is
Apple.
the hardware. When it comes to hardware design, obviously they're pretty good at that. Everybody likes that, and you know, a lot of people take that. Imitation is a serious form of flattery, right? So now we see a lot of Chromebooks and a lot of Ultrabooks that look very similar to a MacBook Pro. So it kind of comes and goes. You got the Intel Nook that looks a lot like a Mac Mini. It when Apple moves, other people follow. I don't know
Yep.
why that is. The advantage that the PC side has is extreme configuration for different things. Now, you don't use that extreme configuration as an advantage against something that's designed specifically for something else. Mac Pros have Xeon Cores workstation server parts. Just because you can cobble together an i7 and it does the thing that you want to do, play a game or work in Photoshop or whatever, and it's still able to do that with that i7, doesn't mean it does all the things that the Mac Pro does.
True. And I read a post about 2 months ago. Some guy brought this up, and I didn't know this, but when I thought about it and what I've heard you talk about and other people, and especially Mr. T, he said when you buy a Mac, when you buy an Apple computer or Mac or whatever, he says one thing you are getting that you don't get with any PC, you're primarily paying not only for optimization, but you're primarily paying for all the included high-end software.
Mm-hmm.
He says for example, like, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, but don't like almost every Mac come with like a version of Final Cut.
Well, not Final Cut, but it comes with iMovie, which is kind of like a dumbed down version of Final Cut. But
In which I
dude,
heard that like by itself it's like $200-300, like by itself,
yeah, like half
if you could buy it
half of
separately.
half of my videos were done in iMovie. Very few videos that I've put up were done in Final Cut, and you couldn't tell the difference between any of them if I told you. It it blows my mind like how well a lot of their stuff is put together. A lot of the soundtracks and stuff that I put in the background and stuff like that comes from stuff straight out of GarageBand. Like I don't even open Logic to do any of that stuff. I don't use any high end software to
Yeah,
to do
he
most of the
mentioned
stuff
it
that I
too.
put up.
That's one of the ones he mentioned too. He's like, most of the software you get, like whether it be for doing music, editing movies, and pictures stuff like that. He said the software, each one is about $100 to $200 a piece. If you were to
Mhm.
buy something equivalent for a PC separately, because
Yeah,
no PC comes with Adobe, Premiere. No PC comes with CS Photoshop. Like, it doesn't come with that.
Yeah, but I can edit photos directly in iPhoto with no problems whatsoever, and it is very similar to Lightroom now, the latest version. There's a lot of things added to it. There's some power that was taken away, but there's a lot of features there that weren't there in the previous versions of iPhoto. And you know, it's you get included software. It's the ease of use of the operating system, which does take some learning if you're coming from the Windows side. But a person like me in the profession that I'm in, I go back and forth between 3 or 4 different operating systems a day. So to me, it's all like, well, I know this equals this and this equals this when I'm in front of this desktop, this desktop, and this desktop. So to me, it's all interchangeable. But for other people, it's night and day. So they really frown upon seeing something different. Like nobody likes change, apparently. So it's all a matter of that being your opinion, and and not knowing what the hardware actually does. So you can't compare an i7 to a Xeon. You can't compare regular DDR memory to ECC memory. They're two completely different things, and they're used for different reasons. Number one, reliability, and number two, higher performance during high workload, if you will. And the other thing is, you have other tasks and other software, like the software you mentioned, like Final Cut and stuff like that, that's tailored specifically to that hardware. So even if you built a PC with a Xeon processor, you're going to end up spending more anyway, because Xeons cost a lot on the PC end. So to buy a $4,000 Mac Pro, you're spending $3,000 just for the CPU to build your PC. You haven't even bought a case yet. You just have the 2 CPU cores that will go in a Mac Pro. You're spending $3,000 right there against the $4,000 system. So guess what? You're paying more than $4,000 trying to build a comparable PC spec for spec, to match every spec that's in that Mac Pro to put in the PC. Believe it or not.
And Mr. T mentioned something about that.
Yeah, it's been that way for about 10 years. But nobody ever pays attention to that. They just say, "Well, I could buy an i7," and yeah, that there's that as well. And the software, like, build a PC. I dare anybody out there right now to find a Xeon that's equivalent to the Xeon that's in the current Mac Pro, the good old trash can that came out in 2013. If you can take the Xeon, the dual core Xeon that's in there, so you have 12 cores, you have 16 gigs of DDR3 ECC memory, you have dual GPUs in there, dual workstation AMD GPUs in there, probably Fire Pro since the D series Fire Pro for Apple is kind of proprietary. But if you buy the Windows version of those Fire Pro cards, you put them on a X99 chipset, which is the closest that you can get to the Mac Pro's situation. See if you can get all that to Hackintosh that to run OS 10 and get it to run as stable as that Mac Pro does for less than $4,000. Any takers? And that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. But other people just say, no, I'll just throw the i7 in there. And to me, it's better because I can do that one thing. And I'm like, well, this $4,000 device does this one thing way better than anything that you would try to do with that i7. It would take like 4 of those i7s to do what I'm doing over here in compressor. It's all about how technology is being used and for what reasons. Nintendo specifically wants to have a low thermal envelope so power is not exhausted as much. So I want to say watt per watt, Wii U is the most powerful hardware there is this generation. If we're counting watt per watt, I mean performance per watt.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. And they make the same comparison when it comes to cars. Like, they're basically getting, like, I think it's like 9 like maybe 100 horsepower per cylinder and things like that, like average. So I have to agree with you from what I've seen the system do. And trust me, people, like I said, I own multiple consoles. I got a PS3, Xbox 360. I don't hate on any one of them. But from what I've seen this generation, the other two are all they're doing is fulfilling the promises that their predecessors made and broke almost a decade ago. That's all they're doing.
Yeah, man. Well, I don't really see any response from Mr. Keshawn here. So I guess we can go ahead and wrap it up, man. But I'm just I want to take this opportunity to let everybody know. I know I've been away for a while, if you will, but come on, guys. Like, number one, they're pieces of plastic that you use to play a game. Why are you so hell bent on determining why somebody should or shouldn't use one to play either the same games or slightly different games than you do? Because at the end of the day, they are games and you play them to have fun, I hope. You shouldn't play them to impress other people or to look cool, because how are you looking cool playing in your own house thousands of miles away from your other friends?
It's called Playroom, man.
I mean
Nah, I'm trolling.
what are you doing? You taking selfies and sending them to each other? Like what I mean, what are you doing? I like Ken, I own multiple consoles. I really have. There are very few consoles I don't own. And yeah, they're all the same to me. When I want to get online and I want to play Killer Instinct, I get online and I play fucking Killer Instinct. I don't get mad and say I wish this was on the Wii U. No, I turn the Xbox One on and I play the Xbox One.
Yeah.
There's no oh, I hate this shit, or I play the Wii U and I'm like, oh man, it really sucks that I can't play this on the PS4. No, that doesn't happen. I play it on the Wii U because it's designed for the Wii U, and then I play it on the Wii U the way it's designed for the Wii U. I don't go in the PlayStation 4 and say, oh, I really wish I could play this on the Xbox One. You know, I just play it on the fucking PlayStation 4. Keep it moving. It shouldn't even be this way. Like, I remember Camille on Google Plus. I'm pretty sure we've all run into her once or twice. She makes a lot of posts. She put a response to a post out there to say, hey, what is your favorite console generation? And I said the sixth generation because I bought the most games that generation. Like, I want to say I bought close to maybe 100, maybe 120 games across PS2, Xbox, and GameCube.
And there was also the Dreamcast.
Yeah, and I don't even want to talk about Dreamcast.
Yeah,
So
I mean
Dreamcast was,
that was the
oh
only
god,
that was the only generation that had four consoles,
oh my
four home
god.
consoles.
Dreamcast has so many games that were just like, I won't say they're classics to me, but if I heard the music from any of those games, I'm like, okay, I need to turn my Dreamcast on now. The sixth generation to me was the pinnacle of gaming, because everything has started to spin up full speed. Like, people had finally started refining 3D gaming, and now they could just focus on making good games. There was no new resolution to worry about. 480p was the standard back in the fifth and the end of the fourth generation.
And there weren't so many multiplats.
Exactly.
There were still very, very many exclusives around that time. Yeah, Madden hit every system and any other games, but for the most part, it was mostly exclusives.
Yep. And believe it or not, I want to say the vast majority of multiplats I bought for GameCube anyway. And in the way I benefited, because a lot of those multiplats on GameCube ended up being very rare. So, it to me, I felt like I was able to jump from platform to platform to platform and play cool game to cool game to cool game. I could play Odin Sphere, and at the same time turn around and play Metroid Prime, and turn around right after that and play Halo 2, and turn around and play Splinter Cell, and turn around and play SOCOM. Like, it was just a wonderful time, man. I don't want to mention Dreamcast games because it get me started on Dreamcast, and that'll be a 6-hour long podcast. So, but yeah, I had a wonderful time, and it just seems now like nobody really complained that much. Yeah, people talk stuff about GameCube because it looked like a little lunchbox or whatever, and there was the kitty mantra going on or whatever, but it was nowhere near as bad as it is now. Like, now it's like people are going out of their way to come up with excuses as to why they won't play a game on that platform, knowing that it's fun and knowing that it's good.
Yep, they all grew up with Nintendo, and now they outgrew Nintendo.
Yeah, I'm like, so you outgrew having fun? So why are you playing games then?
And I'm laughing, but I actually do have friends that when I say, "Hey, man, you want to go to Six Flags this summer?" No, man, I don't go to music park. So you're too old to have fun now? Like, seriously?
Yeah, like what?
But you want to go to a bar? Like, come on, dude. You can't always have adult fun. You gotta be a
Yeah,
kid.
I mean, but even if you're having adult fun, it's still a form of entertainment. So if you're gonna do one, you should be able to do the other. Like I put it this way: I have two children. I have a beautiful wife, and I am 35 years old. I have no qualms pulling out a set of Legos and building something if I want to. And Lord forbid anybody questioning me why. I'm a grown ass man. If I want to do it, I can do it. If I want to go cut grass, I'll go in my yard and I'll cut grass.
And people, I really, if any of you guys on here would say something about that, I would suggest you not. Just don't.
Yeah, I dare you play with those Lego blocks. You playing with toys. Yeah, I'm sorry. You stopped playing Minecraft to come over here and tell me that?
Shadow,
Sorry,
shadow.
sorry, sorry. I contradiction city, man. It's all the time. It's all the time. I can't help but, and I deal with that on a daily basis. It's kind of funny to me, and but it is what it is. I feel that I have a small victory because I have a couple of coworkers finally giving in and playing Bayonetta 2, even though they have to play a Wii U to do it. They're at least willing to play it and have fun. So there should never be a situation where you have a controller in your hand that's black that otherwise you would think is a cool piece of hardware, with the exception of it having a Nintendo logo on the back. Because I'm fairly sure if Microsoft came out with a gamepad, nobody would have any problems with it.
Nope.
But
No.
for whatever reason, Nintendo's controller looks all weird and you can't play with it. Even though there's Wii U Pro controllers that perfectly fix that issue, but nobody wants to get any. Even though it's the only way to play multiplayer on the platform anyway, unless you use Wii remotes. So man,
Trust me, man. I understand. That's why I said, me personally, I'm done. No, I'm not done with the YouTube community. I'm not done dealing with people. It's not that. I am done trying to enlighten those that continue to believe the lies that's just being spit out. That's just being given to us, that Wii U is weak, Nintendo is doomed. Like, some of these lies have been going on for 2, 3 decades, man. At some point, you just gotta say, hey, this cannot be true, because this has been said for a while. So my whole thing is, you want to be dumb, be dumb. You want to be ignorant, be either. You want to choose to be a man and play something manly, other than have fun, do your thing. Because I'm a fan of games. I go where the games go, and eventually I'm going to get myself a PS4 and an Xbox One. But in the meantime, I'm going to be having fun with my games and with my wife, who, by the way, loves Splatoon. She's already hooked on it.
Oh wow!
I let her play the whole third test fire, and she is hooked. She's not even a shooter fan, but she's hooked.
I wonder if my wife would like it, because it looks like it has that kind of appeal where, like, anybody that gets their hands on a controller be kind of into it.
When it comes out, get the game, give it to your wife, and give her ass that mop, that roller. I promise you, it's the only time that I think part of the reason she loves it is because she wasn't required to kill somebody else to make to actually make a difference. Even though she ended at the top of the whole queue, like #1 for the whole match a few times. But yeah, she just mopping herself away. Her whole concern is, if the purpose of me to color this ground, that's what I'm going to do. And it worked. And no issue with the gyro controls, nothing.
There's a side benefit too, that if anybody gets in the way, you can completely flatten them. So there's that.
No, I'm telling you, like, so May 29th, day off work, her and I will both be splatted.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, look, we can go ahead and tune it out, man. For those who are just now tuning in, this is ShadowCasts. I guess this was supposed to be a comparison debate, if you will, but the other party obviously is not going to be present. I've sent multiple invites, but I haven't heard a word, a reply, any type of message on Google Plus, if you will. And even if he did reply in the thread, I'm pretty sure Ken, if he hasn't completely blocked him, he would have saw it also. But it just bewilders me that people tend to have a hive mind, which is what causes this kind of stuff. I won't say per se that this person is doing it, but it is definitely a, how can I say this, a common occurrence with people with that type of opinion. That it basically ends up being an opinion. They say it as a fact at first, but when you start asking questions about it, it starts devolving down to, oh well, I just feel it's this way. Well, where'd you get that wonderful opinion from? Because I've heard it from 30 different people that are in the press. I wonder why you have that opinion now. And I wonder how all of a sudden you as a person who I decided to follow on Google Plus knows nothing about technology whatsoever. I'm not talking about this person, but other people in general. You know nothing about technology, but all of a sudden you want to start comparing the specs of consoles. Like, where? Oh, okay. So you're picking up this knowledge from what somebody else said, and this is your new opinion now. Like, think for yourself. Think for yourself. That's the whole reason why I even have a channel. I got tired of IGN telling me what to think. I got tired of GameSpot telling me what to think. I got tired of other forum goers telling me what to think. So I decided to start taking things into my own hands and start looking at stuff on my own and start seeing things like the power draw of wattage of the USB ports on the Wii U and things of that nature. And you figure out all kind of interesting things that even Nintendo doesn't tell you the full truth on, because, according to them, you can only use one drive at a time. And through a little bit of experimentation, I was not only able to get two drives going at a time, I was able to power two drives, two controllers charging at the same time, in addition to the other port being used, because there only one port was going to the hub. So I could have basically almost an infinite amount of things coming out the back of that thing, as long as the hubs coming out of it were powered. And those are things that even Nintendo in statements say, oh, we don't support this, but it works. It works. It's possible. So start thinking for yourself. Start going out there. Start experimenting with stuff. Don't believe Digital Foundry and their 1 frame per second, because every game is rendered at 59.94 frames per second, not 60. There's no such thing as 60 frames per second in this console generation. Not in STC, not in the USA. No, sir. Even though they are overseas, their frame rate is actually a little bit lower, because they're 50 hertz or something to that effect. So you can't even really get an accurate statement on there. And of course, they don't give you the details of how they captured all this stuff. So just start thinking for yourself, play the games, and actually have fun with the games, and leave the technical details to people that actually discuss, debate, and research tech on a daily basis.
I agree.
And with that being said, we'll go ahead and call this one adjourned. Ladies and gentlemen, you play games to have fun, to impress other people. I'm out.
As I always say, keep it gaming, people.